Good afternoon. I'm very happy to welcome you today to our second event about sustainable reconstruction in Ukraine from rubble to resources. My name is Marta Pastuch and I am from the Secretary of German Platform for the Reconstruction of Ukraine. We are going to have today two contributors, one from Ukraine and one from Germany, Roman Puchko, Rethink Platform, and Dominique Campanella, CEO and co-founder of Concular Reuse of Materials. And today's meeting will be moderated by Anna Ackermann, policy analyst, International Institute for Sustainable Development, and representative of the Build Ukraine Back Better platform. Before I give the floor to Anna, I would like you to answer one question. I would like to ask you if you attended to the previous meeting, to the previous event, end of March. You may to see the question here. And results. Okay, only third part attended last time and another two thirds didn't attend. Okay, thank you for joining us. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marta, and welcome everyone to our event. I see people are still gathering. We saw quite a big attendance last time already, and it means that there is interest in the topic. That's why we decided to do the second event. And it will be, of course, a little bit different because we have different speakers, but definitely the discussion will be as interesting. My name is Anna Ackermann. I'm the policy analyst at the International Institute for Sustainable Development. I work since 22 on green reconstruction of Ukraine and also support the Build Ukraine Back Better platform, which unites more than 50 organizations from all across Europe working on different topics related to green and sustainable reconstruction of Ukraine. And happy to have Rethink today, which are also members of the platform, who will be talking about circular aspects of reconstruction. First time we met, and as today only 1/3 of the audience have been to the first event, but there is an overview at the website of the German Platform for Reconstruction if you would like to check that. But first time we discussed the issue of the how to use the enormous amount of the rubble that Ukraine has. And we discussed these issues with the really great speakers. We heard from Olena Koltik, who's Ukraine support team CEO and also co-founder of Rethink, and also from Bart Geert from Neo Eco. I think it's important to do the small intro in any case to the issue. And especially after the weekend and after the 3 horrible nights in Kiev and all across Ukraine, where Russia just keeps destroying the infrastructure and unfortunately killing civilians. But in these times, Ukraine has been thinking since reconstruction, already since 22. There is the human suffering, but there is also this massive increase in construction and demolition waste. Just today in the morning, we could read in the news the latest numbers from the Ministry of Development and Reform. The Ministry of, now it's called Ministry of Communities Development, about the cost of rebuilding the housing sector in Ukraine, and that is $56 billion. And the full restoration need for the coming 10 years is more than $80 billion for the building sector only. We have more than 200,000 buildings destroyed or damaged. And due to the bombing of the cities of critical infrastructure, the waste adds up to hundreds of thousands of tons of debris. across the different regions of Ukraine. Of course, some see more destruction than others. Mm, so today we have great speakers, and I don't want to be postponing too much and giving them the word. Today we have Roman Puchko, the co-founder of Rethink. He will be speaking first. So just to introduce Roman, but before I introduce Roman, just to briefly mention how we'll be working today. We will have the contributions from the speakers. Then there will be a Q&A, quick Q&A, maybe 10 minutes. And then we would like today to work in also small groups. Hopefully, Microsoft Teams will allow us to split into smaller groups and also discuss potential cooperation. And also, of course, based on what we will hear from our speakers and from the discussion that we're going to have, please don't hesitate to put whatever information, questions in the chat throughout the whole event. We will try to collect all of this information and try to make sure that you connect between each other and that you get the information you need, because the idea is to make sure that whoever is here, probably you have this interest, so we have to make sure that we meet and we discuss whatever possibilities for cooperation. Again, the cooperation is necessary because the needs are extremely high, and also not just the needs, but the potential to work in Ukraine, and to develop together and go together to a more circular green economy. So, without further ado, Roman Puchko, the CEO of Rethink. He has academic background in circular cities, and since co-founding Rethink in 2017, he has been promoting implementation of green innovations in Ukraine, trying to open up the potential for circular transition in Ukraine. He unites, and I know that for sure, many colleagues, like-minded people around the topic and different stakeholders too, moving toward more ecologically sustainable and also aesthetically beautiful reconstruction of Ukrainian urban environment and infrastructure. And Roman will share with us the initiatives that Rethink are working on at this moment, as well as he will talk a little bit about the challenges, opportunities that they face, and of course the kind of partnerships that would be great to have in their work. So Roman, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Guten Tag, I should say. Good afternoon, everybody. I will share my presentation. It's very small, but I feel like it's better to show something. So I have only 10 minutes, so I will not be taking a lot of your time, and I will not be speaking extensively about every initiative because that's going to take longer. But please, if you have any questions or like request to elaborate on something, just put them in the chat. I will do my best. So indeed, Rethink is for 7.5 years we have been promoting circularity, but of course since the full-scale invasion we have switched to only reconstruction related issues, and this whole story with rubble, destruction, waste, and what to do with it has been central in our work, although we try to tackle also another dimension which is related to new construction and how we design new construction in the most circular and environmentally friendly way. And this is a very cute picture from the summit we organized last year in November, and yeah, you can even see the name of Dominic here on the poster because he was there physically in Kyiv. And yeah, we thank you, Dominic, again for coming at that time because it was extremely important. And that was actually the day when Russia launched for the first time, I think it was the only time so far, intercontinental ballistic missile onto Ukraine, which is not supposed to be used for such distances. And that happened exactly during the panel with Dominic. So again, thank you so much. for coming. Of course, it was not in Kiev, but still. So I will speak about two projects which are focused on circular reconstruction from the viewpoint of debris and secondary construction materials, which we want to reuse and the value of which we want to maximize, actually. So first one is Povtorno. Povtorno is an online platform created to facilitate circular construction in Ukraine, to exchange reclaimed materials and yeah, kind of be a knowledge base matchmaking tool and a marketplace, more or less. And we have been inspired by many European platforms of such type. One of which was obviously Restado.de, the product that Dominic created more than 12 years ago. So it was it was probably the first connection of us to Dominic's work, and that we really appreciated very much and were inspired by the platform they have created back then. Povtorno means to use again, and that's quite logical name. Right now we are trying to convince stakeholders in the construction industry and also municipalities that it makes sense to put all those materials that are left, or materials that are found, or materials that are not needed onto the platform, and also that it makes sense to use them in construction. But we have many obstacles, of course, in Ukrainian context. S3, so safe, sustainable, and swift reconstruction of Ukraine is another project that we're busy with, and this one is much more technologically complicated, because it's about basically recycling concrete into concrete with separation of cement basically from gravel and sand, from aggregates, and trying to not only use this material in road bedding, but also in construction, of course, which then makes sense from the cement viewpoint, because when we substitute when we use it in the road bed, we basically use it as gravel, as stone. So we are neglecting all those 8% of CO2 emissions in the world that are caused by cement, and we continue to produce new cement as binder. In this project, it's quite complicated technological project by British, Dutch, and Ukrainian parties, where we are local coordinators. So we have been now trying to move to practice in this one, finalizing installation of equipment in the Kyiv region. That has come, part of it has come already from the Netherlands, part of it is still coming. As the result, we want to try to pilot usage of reclaimed concrete in maybe construction, so maybe walls of buildings which are going to be constructed, but also in urban design and some other applications, because we don't know yet what will be feasible. Then obviously we have very strong educational component and capacity building component as an NGO, because we are an NGO, so we see how basically how deep is that gap in perception and in knowledge about green technologies, environmentally friendly innovation, circular design, within those communities of people who work with construction, work with materials on everyday basis. So there is certain understanding that we have to be environmentally friendly, and we're going into the European Union, so we have to adapt certain regulations, but often it is perceive that green construction, circular design is something completely unknown or very complicated or very expensive, etc., etc. So we try to do also educational sessions, and I'm sharing this slide just because you can have a look at our YouTube page where we have some recordings by very cool European experts, including Dominic, by the way, on the topic of circular construction and circular cities. Yeah, so I will be. I'm more on time than needed, but okay, that's cool. So I will be finalizing very small, very short pitch by um, telling what would be the aspiration to collaborate with such organizations as Concular, because it is truly valuable to use that depth of experience of these guys in pre-demolition audit, in digitalization, in LCA models for Ukraine's reconstruction. And of course, we need the resources for that. So both Rethink and Concular. Well, Concular is a company, so I mean and they have to have commercial model there, I guess. But Rethink is a rather small NGO, so we both would need resources if we want to bring this thing further to advance circular construction. Based on this partnership, but I hope it will be feasible, and I hope we will be able to explore possibilities in that area, perhaps even with the help of German financial institutions or governmental institutions. That would be great. But I will stop on this one, and I encourage you to check our website for more, because we have some more interesting things there. And yes, I'm ready and happy to answer Q&A. Whenever you prefer this, Anna, maybe right now.
Thank you. Yeah.
Or also in the end.
Let's start a very short Q&A now, and then we will move to Dominique, and then we'll have a larger Q&A. Just wanted to check with you also what maybe maximum 3, or maybe there is 1 or 2 main challenges that there are in Ukraine at the moment when we think about circular construction. Well, you mentioned, of course, the debris, but you're also looking into the new buildings and how to build them better. But perhaps there is a few key elements that you think are important for the audience to know in terms of challenges.
Yes, and it's a kind of vicious cycle. So we have a lack of innovations, like I mean, empirical proof that you see that this is possible, and we have lack of legislation. We have lack of capacity, but it's kind of interdependent, because if you don't know what is possible and you never try to do a practice, then you're not able to embed this one into legislation, because the government will simply be not ready to it. So I would say it's a technological gap, it's a regulational gap, but of course it's also funding and things like that, because we understand that at this point in time, having this horrible full-scale war raging on, circularity and environmental friendliness is not top 1 or top 3 of the agenda in Ukraine. So yeah.
Right, thank you so much. And indeed, now we see more and more pilots happening in Ukraine. So it will be interesting to see those things that Roman was mentioning and piloted and see first results too of different projects. And this is probably the way to go to then have that legislation in place, as you're saying. But now I'm moving on to Dominique. And Roman already introduced him a little bit, but I'll just add a few words from me. So Dominique is the CEO and co-founder of Concular, which is the German company, and also that has a platform for circular construction. It's Berlin-based, And Dominic is the brain behind their tool that is designed to cut greenhouse gas emissions for construction industry. He will tell a bit more about that. So Dominic is very much committed to fighting climate crisis through digitalization in the sector, to understand what is the material structure of the built environment, and also how to deal with the such complicated issue as embodied carbon and circularity. Dominic, the floor is yours.
So now you can hear me now, right? Yeah.
We can hear you very well. Yes, yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot for the invitation, and also it's really great that GIZ is also putting effort into that. As Roman said, I had the pleasure to got invited by Roman and we think in October last year to go to Kyiv, and I saw also that there's a lot of support by the German government, which is essential. And of course, like it would be even better to even have more support, because you can make a big difference, especially also now having so many buildings which unfortunately are destroyed or partially destroyed, and there's a huge potential to use these materials to basically build or rebuild Ukraine. And it's also big economically, but also ecologically big opportunity. What I actually wanted to do is very quickly say like what we think is necessary to be able to establish circular construction. We think there's actually 3 steps necessary. So digitize, realize, so really do it, and then also measure the impact. With digitalization, it's very important that to know that almost no building has like a digital twin or information about the materials inside. So what you have to do first is really you have to digitize what materials are in the building. You can do that with 3D scans or like a app which we basically develop, which you can really easily and very fast, and this is important, take all these materials. And we developed a methodology around that, which is called pre-deconstruction audits. And what's very important is in our company is that we don't keep the things for ourselves, but we share it. So this is why we created the German standard from it, which is for free, which is also in English. So we translated it to English so that also other countries can use it. And this standard is basically telling you how to get to know what materials in a building. And then, you know what's in the building, and then you can also take these materials to build something new. You can Google for the STIN spec 91484. It's for free, and it's already used in more than 8 countries right now. I'm heading the ISO committee, which is doing that as an international standard, and that can also be very beneficial, of course, already in Germany, but in also countries like the Ukraine. But most important part is, of course, to realize what to do with all these materials when there's a deconstruction or when you have like a destroyed building. One initiative which I want to highlight, which is not from Concula, but whom we are working together, is Revin. I think it's a Swiss initiative. So basically what they do is, because in Germany and also other countries, we have a lot of windows, and unfortunately, they're not getting reused. But windows is something which is, of course, needed in the Ukraine a lot. So they collect, of course, windows of good quality in all these countries, and then they are giving it to Ukraine as part of materials to rebuild, especially windows, because Roman knows it much more, but due to the pressure of the air, the windows getting destroyed a lot, so there's a huge need also of that materials. Giving examples in Germany, what is possible if you have all these digital information is, you can, for example, this is an industrial hall in Berlin that was getting deconstructed. If you have all the information, you can find a new buyer for that. So we sold the whole hall. It's 100 meters long. And here you can see how it was then deconstructed, and it was put on another place, basically, where it was constructed again. Important is in infrastructure for that. So how we did that in Germany was that we basically established now storage facilities all over Germany. We call it urban mining hubs. So these are basically storage facilities to take these materials in, to refurbish them, and then put it into a new building. And this is important because very often you cannot use the materials directly. There might be a time gap of a couple of weeks or months in between, and so you can take care about that. You can see some photos of our urban mining hub in Berlin, where we have all kinds of materials.
Apologies, Dominique. We don't see your slides.
You don't
I'm
see
sorry.
them?
You were probably yeah, we were probably showing many things, but we don't see.
Oh, I'm really sorry for that. So can you see it now?
Yeah, if you could just show us from the beginning, because we didn't see anything.
Yeah, I'm really sorry for that, but thanks for highlighting. So very quickly, I think the important part is here you can see the app, which I just showed, and the 3D scans. Here you can see the DIN spec 9184, so the pre-deconstruction orders, which I just mentioned. So if you want to, but I can also paste the link afterwards to download it. And then you can see the WeWin website, where you can also go to. You can, of course, donate money. You can donate materials. They take all care about these materials. So Rewin in Switzerland, but they are operating all over Switzerland and Germany. And you can see the hall which got deconstructed and put somewhere else. You can see how they're getting deconstructed, and here you can see a map of the urban mining hubs which we have all over Germany, and then some pictures. So here you can see, like, we have bricks, wood, what's everything which is in the building, and like here we also have windows and so on. And yeah, every day there's materials going in and out. And you can also see it's quite, so there's some really easy wins on materials for the reuse of materials. So you can see, for example, the steel stairs. I mean, this is steel. This is something which is not corroding, and you can just take them off. You put them on a truck and you put it somewhere else. So normally it would be melted down and something else would be done with that, but it's much better economically and ecologically, because such a steel stair costs in Germany 20,000-30,000 euros. Taking them off, putting them somewhere else costs maybe 2,000 to 3,000 euros. So you can save a lot of money, but of course a lot of CO2. So CO2 saving is around 95% on that. But bricks, also something which is, of course, in Ukraine quite a lot. So here you can see on a building in Berlin how we take off some bricks because we want to test how easy they can get deconstructed. So these are, for example, full bricks, but these are like, with holes. And then we test them, and you can see like a test document. And if they are fulfilling all the requirements, which is with old bricks most of the time the case, we take them off, we put them onto pallets, and then we sell them. And basically they are put into buildings which are already existing very often. So, and I guess this is also a huge challenge. So you don't want to, so if a building is getting destroyed, for example, the wall, you want to have materials who are more or less looking like the same. And so this can be done if you do this urban mining approach. So this is basically a facade of an old building in Germany, and they put materials which we got from another building in, and you can see there's almost no difference in terms of color and so on. And this is very important, because there's also some aesthetics, right? And I mean, they're looking now a bit cleaner, but it's just because it didn't rain so far. So if it's rained 3-4 times, you will not see the difference anymore. And so you can reconstruct buildings in a way as they looked before. And I think this is also very important. And maybe as a last slide, as I said, we are trying to publish everything we do, so open source. And so all the stuff like how to build circular, how to use pre-deconstruction audit, how to do recertification and so on, we published in a handbook, which you can download for free. So this is the website, you can download it. Unfortunately, this is only in English, but you can translate it, I guess, easily. It's more than 100 pages. And we also, and this is something which I guess could be also interesting for Ukraine, is about the warranty of buildings. So how do you take care that these materials are also in a good condition? And if something happens, who's taking care about that? And for that, we created an insurance model, which can be also applied to other countries. You can download This is also in English available at this website, also how an insurance can look like for reclaimed materials, because this is one of the biggest challenges we have in Germany, but that is also the case in a lot of other countries, to really recirculate materials in a really huge scale. And yeah, that's it. And I'm really looking forward to discuss with you more about this topic.
Thank you so much, Dominique. This is amazing, and I think we see how much could be done. Perhaps you can also say, well, same question goes to you as was for Roman in terms of potential cooperation with Ukraine of company like yours. What is needed for you to come to Ukraine and do more?
So yeah, we are not operating in Ukraine, and I think organizations like Roman's organization are much more suited, because they basically know how the construction sectors in every country very different, and cultures and so on. So I think what we can do is we can provide our knowledge, we can provide our software and so on. And yeah, I think what is needed is basically. So what I saw when I was in Kyiv was that there is a big exchange. So for example, the University of Kyiv is sending people to Berlin and vice versa. And so this knowledge transfer, which is again sponsored by GSZ, I think this is very important. But then also, for example, inviting companies like the one from Roman or NGOs to Germany, they can see how we're doing it there. And we can go to Ukraine and so on. So it's a lot about knowledge transfer and making the technology available. I think this is important. It's not about bringing Concula to Ukraine, but more enabling local companies to do what we do in Germany. And this is where we open, of course, to give our resources, but I think it's very important that programs from the German government are getting prioritized, that this knowledge transfer is ongoing and even much more intensified.
Right, thank you for that. Indeed, there is a lot going on already, but there is never enough again, because reconstruction of Ukraine is as we see, is worth more than €500 billion euro project. So it's a whole euro project. I thought I would also, as you mentioned, the issue about emissions and how reusing, recycling reduces emissions. I just wanted to give everyone one more number. Sorry for the numbers, but I guess it's a bit too much sometimes. But the colleagues from the Initiative on Greenhouse Gas Accounting of War they've been since the first year of the invasion calculating the climate damage and climate impact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And so they have the the numbers of the impact on climate, and the number is big, right? I will share with you the publication, but out of that, like 1/3 of the climate impact from this war, or approximately 30%, is not about the military missions. It's not about all of that is a part, not about forest burning. It's about future reconstruction, because there's so much emissions that would be coming from the cement, steel production and so on, that will be needed to rebuild all of those hundreds of thousands of homes. So it's really important to think about different approaches to this, right? Maybe with this, I'll be opening up the floor for questions. If anybody has a question, please don't hesitate to add them in the chat. I saw that some of you were sharing some details about the projects. There is a UNIDO who has a project, a German delegate program on circular construction that is now open to Ukrainian companies, and they invited to learn more about it. Is there any questions at this moment to our speakers, because we have quite many participants? I'm sure there should be something. You can also, if you feel lazy to type, you can also raise your hand at this moment. That's also fine. Let's give people a little bit of time to think. But meanwhile, maybe a question to both of you. Perhaps you were already thinking of the priorities for cooperation, because again, there is so much that could be done, and maybe you already had some idea. So where you think there is a certain need that has to be addressed as quickly as possible. So what would be the first steps and first priorities for Ukraine, of course, in particular?
Well, maybe I could start here because I think I'm thinking about Ukraine more than Dominic does, and that's very normal. It's very logical. So for me, it's always about piloting and practical projects that show what's possible. I think we have extremely low number of such projects going on in Ukraine. We have many projects that are about certain studies, research, yeah, I don't know, brochures, conferences, whatever. But we have so little of projects that are related to real stuff, to either bio-based construction, or to high value upcycling or recycling, and I mean recycling, not downcycling, of those construction elements or debris, or yeah, whatever materials that can be used for construction. So in that sense, we have the whole range of ideas and projects around this, starting from pre-demolition audits, and or using spectral sensors and optical cameras and octocopters to scan buildings and destruction sites to, like, basically distinguish those materials that are rubble and to estimate their amount. But it all needs a very specific support. It all has very specific budget, which normally is not there. So you have to really work hard to get something on a very specific thing. But also, I think we have to work on promoting better regulation. And that's, I think it's happening. It's happening already, both within this Ukraine-EU accession negotiations and negotiation groups under Cluster 4, etc. But it's a little bit not enough in sense that we need more capacity for Ukrainian government, for Ukrainians, specialized agencies that work with construction and reconstruction, so that they could embed all these concepts of new European Bauhaus, green certifications, all these things about, material flow analysis and optimization, etc. I will stop here because it's already too much. And I see questions.
While we were talking, we have a few questions. If Marta and the organizers allow, still we'll pick up a few questions and then we'll try to go to the breakout rooms. So there is 4 questions now, or even 5. First one: what is happening with the old window frames? I guess this goes to the initiative that Dominic shared.
Yeah, so basically, so in Germany, it's very difficult to reuse these frames very often because they have very strict energy efficiency regulations, and sometimes beyond something which doesn't make any sense anymore, which is very sad. But then there's some quite interesting design ideas. You can also take 2 windows together and so on, but it's very difficult in Germany. And then what normally would happen is that they would be landing on the landfill. So, but if they're in a good condition, I mean, we don't send waste to the Ukraine, but if they're in a good condition and of course have a certain energy efficiency, then they are going directly to Ukraine.
All right, so it's possible. So we have to basically see, depending on the state of the frames, I guess.
So yeah, and so this initiative is doing a check. It's doing a quality check. So you have to send them photos before, all the product sheets and so on, and they only take windows which are, of course, of help, because otherwise it would be like send all the stuff which are not good to Ukraine. This should be not the case, but it's about sending good quality materials to Ukraine, and they're taking care about that.
All right, thank you for that. Next question, what is the average increase in construction costs if we are building in a circular way?
Maybe I can also say something. So we see a decrease of around 30% of material costs. So it's quite interesting that people always say it's more expensive, but this is not the case. It's actually cheaper. So I showed you the example of this staircase. 20,000 new, 2,000 to 3,000 euros if you reuse them. So, I mean, this is a massive saving, but on average, we see it around 20 to 30%.
Thank you so much. This also reminds me of the question I remember discussing with transport infrastructure experts that building better sometimes roads in Ukraine means it's going to be cheaper because we overuse cement and we overuse some things because we have old standards.
But maybe also adding to that, it's very important to have this infrastructure in place. So since we have these urban mining hubs and so on, this makes it even lower the time. So it's an initial investment, but the investment doesn't have to be done by, I mean, it can be done by the government and by initiatives. I mean, we also created the urban mining hubs thanks to grants from the German government and so on. And then, of course, it's definitely much cheaper. Yeah. But Roman, you also wanted to say something.
Yes, just to add a little bit from the Ukrainian point of view, because apart from infrastructure that you have in Germany, you also have a rather adequate market with rather adequate pricing of externalities, both in the beginning of the cycle where you tax resources and those finite materials, but also in the end of the cycle where you pay a relatively fair price for dumping, for landfilling. And that makes circularity a little bit more economically viable than in Ukraine, where these things are extremely cheap. So unless we do not, how you call that? Well, basically increase fiscal load on natural resources and also make dumping a little bit more expensive, we should not expect that circular construction will be very beneficial. So apart from infrastructure, it's also governance, but also technological capacity and knowledge in the sector. So, but I agree that this initial investments, and it's a very good word for that, can be done by sector in general, doesn't have to be done by separate businesses.
Thank you for that. And one last question, perhaps, before we move to the next part. From GIZ, expert, general question to the topic. As implementing organization, we do already a lot of reconstruction, but we don't see organized approaches in the reuse of debris. Is there anything we could do to push the different reuse approaches to official levels? Right now, it seems just like a lot of independent, private, and unorganized initiatives. This is partially something that Roman was already addressing in terms of priorities, perhaps.
Yeah. But also here, I mean, it's so like the European Commission is basically going into this direction with the Circular Economy Act. And I mean, Roman just argued also that like if, I mean, with the accession, I think it's called, to the European Union, that must be a part. So it must be pushed on the government, on a regulative level, that the whole market and rules, like if a building is getting deconstructed, you have to do a pre-construction audit and so on. This is basically going into European law anyway. So why not doing that also then on a level in Ukraine? I mean, we see it in Germany. So in Germany, the government gave us grants and gave us also the regulative framework more or less, because to be honest, the EU is doing it. The German government would not do it otherwise. But anyway, because of that, the market is created. So, I mean, you always have to fight against an already established market. And so, yeah, now creating that market, I think, is important. And that must be done on a quite high level.
Absolutely. I agree. In the end, Ukraine could be a huge market, right? And there
Yes.
should be lots of R&D in Ukraine, especially if Europe is serious about moving towards circularity. Ukraine is a hub for potentially lots of research and development in the topic. I'm told there is still one question that is important, and we will let's cover two straight at the same time. One, of
Sorry,
course,
but we have
is
to answer the question of Igor, which was, is there? And I say,
right.
yes, there is. So
Okay,
you can
sorry,
chat
yes.
with us later.
So there is initiatives, right? And so the last question, now is the last one, about contamination and asbestos, of course, and so on. How do you, what if you find asbestos in construction waste of building? What do you do? Is there a limit limit amount that is possible? And also any other potential contamination that you find in concrete, maybe from military activity? What do you do with that?
I guess that's a question to us mainly, right? Or Dominic, you want to say something?
I can just say in Germany it's forbidden to reuse materials which have any toxics. So tolerance in Germany is 0%. Unfortunately, depending on the year of construction, the 70s, 80s, you have quite a high share, but there's still a lot of materials which don't have asbestos or other things. So, but if so, we are not allowed to reuse it. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, but it's of course good for the health. There are technologies to remove that, but they're very expensive. So it's not economically feasible. How it is now in Ukraine, I think, Roman, you can tell. And it's also about like, I don't know if there was a rocket or so. I think there's also some toxics involved, I guess, in that.
Yes, of course, for sure. But to be honest, we did not have experience yet with contaminated materials. So that's, yeah, it's on the one hand it's good, but on the other hand, there's plenty of such. And in case of asbestos, of course, there are these mobile sensors that are measuring concentrations of asbestos evaporations and particles in the air, and you can basically scan and check if it's safe to work on the site. But we still don't have fully operational infrastructure for asbestos testing in I mean in the material, so in the lab, and that's a little bit of problem which is going to be fixed, I believe, in the next year. There is an initiative on that. As for the missiles and fuels and metals that are there, I cannot say anything. No experience of dealing with such materials. But of course, it's probably the same with asbestos contamination. You just have to isolate them and basically think about the most appropriate and safe utilization. So that's it, I guess.
And I think for those who were the first webinar, they heard from our speakers back then. We were addressing the question of asbestos too, and everybody is discussing a lot about asbestos in Ukraine. However, as one of the speakers pointed out, there was also some other potentially hazardous paints, for example, that the EU companies kept exporting to Ukraine when these paints were already forbidden in the EU. So they kind of wanted to sell it somewhere else. And in the end, in the 90s, 2000s, Ukraine ended up using some of the products that were already forbidden in European Union. So it's also a question of some responsibility, I guess, that we have to think about, and definitely think beyond asbestos, because it's not definitely the only thing that we have. However, the potential is still huge, also because now the amount of the waste is so huge, as we were mentioning before. So we have to do something with that.